Welcome to Mission Imperfect, the podcast about finding your own path, your own way, and embracing the imperfection of the journey.
We're your hosts, life coaches, former HR professionals, and mums, Kirsty and Kathryn.
We love to discuss the topics that come up time and time again for our coaching clients and which affect us all, from things like acceptance and boundaries to values and well-being and everything in between.
Each episode ends with a question for you and us to reflect on. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to grab a cuppa and a biscuit and join us in getting lost in finding ourselves. Hello and welcome to Mission Imperfect on the 1st of January 2025. That sounds weird, doesn't it? And it's the 1st of January, so everybody is thinking about their New Year's resolutions, right? And I find that every new year I resolve not to make any resolutions. So I have absolutely no idea whether I am winning or not. What do you think, Kathryn?
I totally hear you. It was so funny. We knew exactly what this episode had to be, didn't we? It's something we've spoken about before, about our sort of antipathy for New Year's resolutions. And yet there is the and yet bit, isn't there? Like, we're not totally against having some kind of, I'm going to mention the word goals here, objectives, whatever you want to call them, because as life coaches, we are obviously trying to help people reach things that they want to do, which in simple terms is a kind of goal, isn't it? And yet there's something about New Year's resolutions that I feel it's just quite arbitrary, isn't it? It's like, oh, it's January, so I will decide something. That whole thing just sounds a bit odd to me.
Yes, doesn't it? And I totally agree with what you're saying, that as coaches, we're trying to help people, achieve what they want to, feel how they want to, do what they want to. And yet, I have to confess, I have a bit of an aversion to the word goal. I think maybe it's a leftover from corporate days when they were always sort of, those kind of tick box exercises and full of politics and corporate bullshit, frankly. And they never seem to have any meaning, and just got pissed off with them. And I think that's really kind of put me off, especially stick the word smart in front of it, and no, you've lost me. I am, even
It
though
is funny.
even though I totally understand the point and value of smart.
Yeah, I hear you completely. It's so funny, isn't it? It's the smart girl. Ooh, gives me a slight heebie-jeebies. I'm like, oh, come on, an acronym. And yet it does kind of make sense to me. But I think this is where I get a bit caught out with them, I suppose, is in very specific contexts and circumstances. Yes, I can perhaps see how they might apply, but it shouldn't just be, like you said, it shouldn't be just a tick box exercise. Oh, I've set some goals. Oh, they are smart. Well done, me. What is it all in relation to? And when it comes to our lives, we know that's all quite messy and complicated and doesn't always fall into these lovely, neat, packaged up terms and things, do they? So to feel that they should do, to me, feels counterintuitive. And
Yeah.
I just think sometimes I like the idea of having direction and purpose. Don't get me wrong. I'm not so anti them that I would always poo-poo any kind of news resolution or goal or any time of year. Because I do think we need to have some sense of what it is we are aiming for, we want, but just not in an arbitrary fashion and not just because it's a certain time of year.
And because everybody else is doing it, there's that sort of peer pressure and conformity thing,
Yeah.
isn't
Yeah,
it?
and it's a tradition, isn't it? But it's a bit. I mean, how many people, if they're really honest with themselves, go through the motions of, oh, it's New Year, I'm supposed to set some, so I will, and they're doing it in such a half-hearted way. They perhaps scrabble around to think of what they should be in the first place.
Yeah.
Their
Not
heart's not
exactly
really
well
in it.
thought out. Yeah.
Exactly. And then it's almost like you kind of know it's okay to drop them by February, March at the latest, because no one's talking about them anymore by then. So who cares anyway? So what was the point in even trying in the first place?
Yeah, you're almost expected to fail, aren't you? It's a bit of a joke. Your New Year's resolutions will be over by February, sort of thing. And I mean the timing, and not just because it's so arbitrary, but setting out at the beginning of January, it's dark, it's cold, it's miserable. At least if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, it is mainly like that. And all these people are suddenly deciding they're going to the gym at 6 o'clock. I mean, really? Wouldn't summer be a better time to start that? And when you're more likely to be able to get up at 6 o'clock? I mean, I do go running at 7 o'clock in the morning 3 days a week, but I notice how much harder it is on the dark mornings. It really is. And that's not starting from scratch. So and you've just had all the stress and the excitement of Christmas, and it's just not great timing, is it, to make those kind of
Mm.
decisions? You need to let everything settle and think about what you want to do.
Yeah. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because whether we call them resolutions or goals, another term we could talk about is habits. Now, because some of them might form into new habits, either to achieve the goal or resolution, or it's the goal in itself is to form a new habit. But we know that that takes time and it takes repetition. So it's interesting just hearing what you were saying about the running. If you were to start that perhaps in like lovely summer weather and you've really got into that pattern and that mentality, I can imagine it would be easier to maintain. I'm not saying easy by any means,
No, it's
but
not.
easier to maintain through those darker, more challenging months than thinking, I know, January the 1st, here I am going for my first run, pitch black in the rain. Lovely.
Exactly. And I mean, I guess, different approaches suit different people, right? So if you're thinking to yourself, if I can do it now, I can do it anytime, that I'll have overcome the most difficult aspects. So I just need to get through these next few weeks and I am good. Then that's fair enough. All credit to you if that's an approach that works for you. Fabulous. But if you know you struggle to get up anyway and you decide to start something that involves getting up when it's dark and cold, you're going to make sure you spend more time outdoors. Again, is January the best time to really engage with that? But, having said all that, all this stuff, we don't necessarily like the idea of goals and smart goals, all the peer pressure and the conformity and the bad or random timing and things not really being thought out and the expectation of failure. Having said all that, as we head into the new year, I know that I will still be thinking about what it is I want to do and have, how I want to be and feel over the course of the next year. And so will I in some way resolve to take some kind of action accordingly? Yes. How
Yes, I
about
know.
you?
Me too. The fact we've just sort of poo-pooed them, and now we're going to said that we kind of get it and might be doing it a bit too. I think what we need to do then is explain perhaps resolutions, goals, habits, whatever you want to call them, the Kathryn and Kirsty way. Perhaps let's give them a better chance, or why. Well, I think we've just spoken about what we perhaps see as some of the issues with them, and
Yeah,
we don't want things to be a waste of our time or just tick box exercises. That's very much not what we're about as
absolutely.
coaches. So let's talk a little bit then about forming better resolutions, even from perhaps from the concept through to the execution. Let's try a little bit of that. Bearing in mind this is coming out in January, and people might be thinking, "Oh, maybe I'm going to get some tips," and they've tuned in. And we've just rubbished it. So let's try and flip
No,
it
don't
over a little
bother.
bit.
Here's the big tip. Don't bother.
Yeah, yes, yes. End of podcast. Yeah, don't bother. No,
Yeah.
we're joking. We're joking.
Enjoy the rest of your day. It's all good. No, let's do that. Some tips because I mean, even if you are not a New Year's resolution person, like we've just said, we're not, that sense of awareness that it's a new year and of wanting something from it, of wanting something from yourself and of yourself for that year, I think it's hard for most of us to avoid that. So let's have a think about how we can look to work that out, to come up with something that works for us, and not necessarily today. This is something we can be thinking about and building on doing for when it works for us, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And I think and we've already touched on this, but the most important thing is to actually be aware of what it is you really, really want. Anyone else got a bit of a Spice Girls earworm now? Tell me what you want. What you really, really want. But with I mean, so many New Year's resolutions sort of fixate on the whole fitness thing or weight loss, don't they? That's the stereotype. But when we're talking about, a resolution of I'll go to the gym for an hour every day, what is that actually about? What I mean, and one tip here, given that we have stated the resolution of giving some tips, ask yourself when you come up with an idea of something you want to do, ask yourself, what will that do for me? And every time you answer the question, ask it again until you get to what it is that is really mattering to you about doing this. And you'll know when you get there. I mean, there is a 7 layers deep exercise, which just usually takes 7 goes to get there. But you will know in your heart when you've hit on the what it is that really matters to you about this, what's driving you. And so often the actions we decide to take are just a sort of, I don't know, almost a symptom of what it is that really matters, not the thing itself. Does that make any
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah, it really does. Because I also think if you do an exercise like that, you might realize there is a better means or way of achieving what it is you really want rather than the first thing that you came up with. Because I think we often, like you said, we come up with those slightly stereotypical things of to do with health. Like I'm going to be healthy. We might say something very generic like that at the beginning of the year, partly because it's quite an easy one to come up with. But actually, when you start to unpick underneath all of that, it might be something a little bit different, and you can put something a lot more specific and relevant to you on that, rather than it
Mm.
sort of being something. Well, I think I should probably want this because of my age, my circumstances, my gender, whatever it might be. And I think that's probably the first way to lose interest in a New
Mm.
Year's
Yeah.
resolution, for it to fall apart when it's not a real genuine desire one for yourself. It's just a kind of loose, I probably should have this in my life. You're not really attached to it, are you? I mean, we've spoken about should in an episode. It's either been out or it's coming very soon.
It's the whole
And
time
our
travel thing for us, isn't it?
yes, it's one of those words we feel quite strongly about, don't we? But yeah, you're absolutely right. If you start thinking about, and that's such a simple and powerful question, what will that do for me? And you'll realize you'll start to land on something that feels a lot more pertinent than perhaps the initial
Mm.
thought that came through.
A lot truer to you and something that you are more likely to commit to.
Mm.
And also, I think some of the fitness and health kind of resolutions are probably a knee-jerk reaction to having just spent the last week or two stuffing your face and drinking too much and hardly moving. And they wear off pretty quickly, don't they? Once you've had time to digest your Christmas food,
Yeah.
the idea of exercise and diet becomes less appealing. Maybe that's just me. And on that note, another tip is to be realistic about the practicalities because it seems that a lot of New Year's resolutions fail because they're too extreme or they've not been properly thought out. How is going to the gym for an hour a day actually going to affect you and your family and your existing commitments and your schedule? For most of us, suddenly finding an extra hour, it's not straightforward.
Mm.
Many of us are leading busy lives. So if you're committing to something which takes time, where are you going to find that time? Because otherwise you're setting yourself up to fail right from the get-go, and that doesn't feel good. So if you started out going, well, I'm going to go to gym, I'm going to exercise for an hour every day. Okay, maybe saying, you know what, my resolution is 30 minutes 3 times a week. That might feel like a cop out at the start, but you're probably more likely to keep doing it if you can actually fit it in without causing havoc in the rest of your life.
Yeah. It's like it doesn't have to be going from 0 to 100. What
Yeah.
about the markers of like 25 and 50? Because then your next step up isn't so far. And if it's going well, you're also going to feel more motivated and
Mm.
inclined to want to take that next step rather than think it's either 0 or it's 100. There's nothing in the middle, and I'm either going to just about make it or I'm doomed, and it's not happened at all.
That's such a good point. And as you say, when you start doing it and you're succeeding, you're feeling good, and also when you're understanding the benefits to you, it might be easier to prioritize it over other things in your life to understand, where it fits in and that how it's benefiting you and the people around you. And it might be by sort of the second half of the year, you work out how to take that hour in a way that you couldn't have done on January the 1st.
Mm.
Yeah.
Um, I was just thinking, this is interesting. We're going to mention that word smart again because this is another, I think, possible trap when it comes to resolutions. And I personally find this one really hard to work out because of that antipathy I have for smart objectives. But if you set yourself something that's too vague, how will you even know if you're working towards it? How will you know if what you're doing is having an impact, is working, is reaching towards what that thing is? And yet, as we've said, I think sometimes you can't always get something to wrap up too much into that smart objective. And yet, maybe there is some benefit of seeing, like that example that you've just given, Kirsty. You said maybe 30 minutes 3 times a week,
It's
that
pretty
smaller
pretty
step. That was actually relatively smart, wasn't it? But there was, sorry, Kirsty, I didn't mean to burst your bubble there by saying you'd set a smart objective. But you can see, but that actually fits in quite well into that realistic camp, which is so important because we don't want to, as you rightly said, just set ourselves up to fail
Yeah.
right from the get-go by being sort of unrealistic and unattainable.
Yeah, I think maybe what you just said has sort of made me realize smart is less annoying when when it's applied to something very practical, isn't it?
Yeah.
As a
Yes,
tool
that's a
for
good
sort of
point.
assessing the practicality of something you're doing. If it's more around sort of mindset or how you want to be, how you want to feel, I think that's where it starts to become trickier and less effective. But if you're looking at something purely practical, how am I going to schedule this into my life? Maybe smart has a place there. Oh, I hate to say that, but yeah, maybe it does.
I think I can reconcile myself to that too. So we're saying you use smart maybe a little bit, but don't be wed to it and don't feel like
Be a
you
bit
have to
smart.
make it smart. Yeah.
Don't be too smart.
Yeah, don't be too smart. No one likes a smart ass.
I can certainly promise not to be too smart. Job done. Excellent.
Yeah.
And
Um
sorry, were
so
you?
yeah, well, I was just going to say, moving on, you came up with this really brilliant set of questions, which I love because this is very is really good coach speak, and I love it because when I get to the last one, it ties my head in a slight knot. So I'm going to have to make sure you're going to have to explain this one, Kirsty. But
It's a
I
brain
like
twister, isn't it?
it works really well.
Yeah, so 4 questions, and I can't take credit for them. I think these came up in my NLP training. But when you are looking to do something, to achieve something, have a little grid, a 4 box grid, and work through these questions. So what happens if I do this? Number 2, what happens if I don't do this? Number 3, what does not happen if I do this? And number 4, what does not happen if I do not do this? Pause to put my brain back in.
Yeah, that double negative at the end completely throws me. And in a way, so yeah, I came across this in my coach training too, and I'm like, surely those second two questions, that's terrible English. Those last two questions, aren't they almost the same as the first two? But they're not quite. There
No.
is there is a bit of a difference, but it does take a moment to get your head around this. But again, this is just about ideas of how to really land on something that you know matters. I think that's effectively what we're looking for, isn't it? It's like, does it matter enough? What is the impact? The impact of doing, but also the impact
Yeah.
of not doing, because then you'll decide if it is worth it. And that's really what we want. Sometimes we need to know if our motivation is going to be there to do something, don't we?
Absolutely, yeah. Is the motivation there? Do I understand? the impact of it, both positively and negatively.
Mm.
And so from somewhere, my brain has just thrown the phrase ecology check at me. I think it's called an ecology check. Um, is this what it is you want to achieve? Is it ecological for you in that how how is it affecting you and your life and the people around you? What's going to happen as a result of it, good or bad? And what's not going to happen? Is it actually going to deliver what it is you're hoping for? If you look at the list of, what happens if I do this, and you think, meh, why are you bothering?
Yeah, exactly.
And if you look at it and think, oh my word, I hadn't realized I'm not going to be able to spend the time with the kids. I'm not going to be able to be there at bedtime. I'm not going to be you might go, oh no, no, I don't want to do that. That's too big a cost. Yeah, it's thought provoking. And the last one I always find a real brain twister. Um, and yet I've been told it's that confusion is the best learning state because
Really?
it
I'm not sure
interrupts
it
the
is for me,
patterns.
Kirsty.
Well, I spent an awful lot of time confused, so I guess I would like to think I'm learning. But it when you're confused, it sort of breaks the logic patterns that you've embedded for yourself and leaves you that little bit more open to seeing things differently, is the theory. I will
Maybe we
leave
should
you.
try it. See how we get on. I feel like I'm gonna have to put this to the test and see what I manage to actually come up with and put in that fourth question box. And it'd be brilliant if people at home did try this
Yeah.
and let us know if they managed to come up with different things for those four questions and did it help them make a decision on something. That would be really interesting to know. Perhaps we should
That'd be
conduct some
great.
kind of study, Kirsty.
Well, you
If
see,
we found some willing guinea pigs, I'm not
look,
sure
look
we
what's
would.
just come up from being confused about that question.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's a brainwave or not though, Kirsty. Not really sure. Anyway, let's move on. Let's move on to we've got a couple more
Rabbit holes.
tips for
Yeah.
everybody. And I think the next two in particular really important. And you said this, Kirsty, and I completely agree about remaining open and flexible about these things. It's not failing to think I might need to revisit this. Maybe I was too ambitious, or maybe this wasn't quite the real thing in the first place, and I'm going to have to rejig it a bit more significantly. Don't worry about that. They're not sort of set in stone. You didn't have to sort of carve them out on New Year's Day and have to, lug them around for the rest of the year.
Yeah. It's, I mean, it's, if you think of it more as an experiment, the aim is to achieve a desired outcome, but maybe the way your first attempt is not the best way for you. It's not the right way for you, or maybe it doesn't deliver the right outcome. So changing course, being willing to do things differently to how you thought you were going to do them, and being open to the possibility that what you thought you wanted isn't necessarily what you did want. It might be as you make progress with it, you find yourself going, you know what? Don't know, this is all it was cracked up to be.
Yeah. And you're allowed to
So
say that.
why keep bothering? Find something
Mm,
else. Um, yeah. If you're setting a goal, you get to move your goalposts. They're your goalposts. Move them as much as you want.
exactly. Yeah. Don't even have to tell anyone. Just do it.
Absolutely. Yeah. That
Yeah.
way, the jumpers on the grass for the kids. Just keep shifting them about.
Yeah. Yeah. Move them really narrow and hope they
Yeah.
don't notice.
Or if tempers get a little frayed, you move them further apart to make it easier. Yeah.
Yes, that's true. That's true. Very true. Um, this next one, I probably wrote this for me, Kirsty, if I'm being completely honest, because I've made no bones about this. Patience is not my strong point, but I think patience and pace can be very important when you're looking at, again, goals, resolutions, habits, whatever term you really resonate with. But because I think we can get disheartened when we don't see results. If you're trying really hard on something and you've got this goal, this outcome in mind, and it feels like your progress is really slow or non-existent, we lose heart, don't we? And it can be really hard to find the motivation to keep going. And I think we like to have markers of progress and we like to reward ourselves for these interim markers. So just for example, if the goal was something like I would love to fit back into this pair of lovely jeans that I've got, And so there you go, Healthful Ever from 1st of January on your new sort of keep fit routine. 1st of Feb, you get those lovely jeans back out full of bit of hope, and you're not close. And it could be so
Mm,
disheartening. But actually, what you might not have realized is what has actually happened. Yes, you haven't reached that end goal yet, but perhaps you've got more energy, or perhaps your skin's improved, your hair, whatever else, what other little knock-on things might have been working well for you. And I think it's really important to acknowledge the interim benefits on the way, whether they are directly linked to the end goal or are just sort of positive spin-offs. And maybe you can reward yourself for reaching the
absolutely.
milestone. I'm not saying perhaps, a chocolate
Biscuit.
bar, that might be a bit counterintuitive at this moment in time for that particular
Biscuits,
goal.
Catherine. We need to mention
Oh, I
biscuits.
know. Well,
You
yes,
gave the
I thought I've
perfect
got to throw in
opening
a
there.
biscuit somewhere. You know what, you and I, we would never, if our New Year's resolution was to give up biscuits, there's a really good example of a very, Kirsty's given me a stare as if to
Why?
say, no chance in hell. But that's just
Why
a really
would you
good
do that?
example of, no, why would you do that? It would be an empty resolution for us. Because even if it was in some kind of get fitter, healthier, whatever it was, we would find another means of doing that because we don't really want to let go of biscuits, do we?
No. Maybe not have a biscuit for 20 minutes. I could possibly contemplate that. Um, you can cut down without cutting out. Okay, I don't usually eat biscuits every 20 minutes, just for the record, before any nutritionists start calling in.
Yes. Oh, so we've been talking for at least 20 minutes and no biscuits have wafted into the screen yet.
Thank you for pointing that out. I feel better now. But this idea of patience and pace, I love it. And it occurs to me that journaling is something that can help with that, because if you are regularly, making a note of how you feel and what you're noticing about yourself and so on, being able to look back over that and see the progress that you perhaps aren't so aware of in any given moment, that can be really useful in giving you that little boost and a non-biscuity sort of reward,
Mm.
a mental biscuit.
Loads of biscuits. No idea what. Be really interested to see what people might come up with for their mental biscuit.
I think this has just become a thing. I'm going to go off and trademark or patent
I was
that or
going to say
something.
mental biscuit. That feels like it should be a term, doesn't it? I wonder if
Should
it's going
be.
to catch on. You heard it here first, everyone.
Well, I suppose it could be a completely insane biscuit, though, a little mad cartoon character, the mental biscuit.
Hmm.
Anyway,
Yes.
distracted, rabbit holes, that sort of thing. I
Let's
mean,
get back on track.
one final tip, which may or may not involve biscuits, and I think a little bit of disagreement on this one. Word of the year. I quite like the idea of a word of the year because I think it can help keep you tuned in to what it is that it really matters you to sort of to do, to feel, to have, to achieve. And it it's a bit like with values, just having it in the back of your mind. And when you're trying to make decisions or and choice, whether you with that word it becomes a little bit of a guide or a measure as to whether what feels best for you, what's going to be in alignment with that. But the key thing here is that you've got to remember the word. It's, if you just come up with something a bit random and you really like it for the first half of January and then you forget it, it's not going to achieve very much. But if it does matter to you, then keep it visible. Have it as a screensaver on your computer or on your phone lock screen. Put it in the front of a journal if you use one. Stick it on post-it notes, on your fridge door in the office, etc. And when you're constantly seeing it, it's that reminder, when you're doing things, is that actually in alignment with this thing that I said I started at the beginning of the year thinking was important to me? And again, going back to all the other points, if that word stops feeling helpful to you, ditch it. Find the one that does feel right. Could be a word of the month.
Hmm. Actually, no, now explaining it like that, I really like it because you're using it in a slightly different way. It's not necessarily a goal of itself because it's only a single word, but it's
Mm.
like a direction and it's almost like a measure. So I love this idea of when you're thinking of a decision, does that kind of fit in with this theme that I've set myself? And I think you totally caught me out, Kirsty, because I did have one, not for this year, I don't think. It might have been the year before, but I did promptly forget it And that's because I did not have it there in sort of reminder
Yeah.
fashion. And as I think we've demonstrated with my slightly squirrel brain with distractions, I just totally forgot about it. So it didn't come to anything. So my bad for that one. And I think we do sometimes need those reminders, don't we? Just to have
Mm.
them around. And then yeah, like we said, you can check in and decide if it's still relevant or not. But there's no harm in trying out, like you said, a bit of an experiment.
Yeah, actually, you mentioned right towards the start around, something like be more healthy, whatever, isn't a good example of a resolution or goal. It doesn't tell you, it's too vague, it doesn't tell anything. But if your word of the year is health, and when you're making a decision about, I don't know, a biscuit, um, if you are if you then refer to the word health, it's actually does, is this in alignment with
Mm,
my
mm.
idea of having more health and being more healthy this year? I'm actually going to skip the biscuit this time. I never said.
Yeah.
Then
I'm not sure you're fully convincing me, Kirsty, that this one would actually work for you. I think the word
for
healthy
me,
might be
for
dotted
me, no.
around.
Possibly not for me, but for others. Although having said that, I was diagnosed as pre-diabetic and I did change my biscuit habits, unbelievably. So I eat
Mm.
far fewer than I used to. So actually, that was a bit of a lie, wasn't it? I've already done it. I have already done the I will skip the biscuit or I will change the biscuits. I will go for rather than my favourites, I'll go for ones with a lower sugar content. And that was very much focused on the idea I need to be healthier. It was is this in alignment with my health and where I
Yeah,
want to be with that? So without having a sort of specific approach in mind, that was the question that kept coming up. So yeah, how crazy that I didn't spot that before.
yeah, no, that's really interesting, actually, isn't it? So clearly, the desire and the motivation was strong enough, and you managed to find a way to make it work for
Yeah.
you, and it didn't mean an absolute cut out cold turkey. And that's the other thing when we're talking about realism of these objectives. When you 0 to 100, or like from having them to
Mm.
having nothing, that's quite a brutal approach. And if it works for some people, fantastic. So I'm definitely not saying don't ever try that. But sometimes that's can be a really difficult thing to set out to achieve. Whereas you, in your example, it might be to modify, to reduce, to exchange, just to
Yeah.
find a way to
'Cause
make that all realistic.
otherwise the thing you're trying to deny yourself starts taking up all your energy because even though you're thinking about not having it, you are thinking about the thing all the time.
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
then, and our brain gives us more what we focus on. So still allowing
absolutely.
some of it can reduce that problem. But yeah, not everybody gets on with the word of the year. And like you, I don't actually remember if I set one for this year. So it doesn't always seem relevant. But I think I will be for next year already because something just came up for me when we were thinking about this, oddly enough. And yeah, so if it works for you, it works for you. Do it.
Yeah. Let's maybe we could do a bit of a mid-year or spring sort of check in and see how, if we have had one, how have we got on with it? What's worked for us, what hasn't? We can maybe do a sort of check in rather than this being something that you only, because we appreciate we're putting this episode out on New Year's Day, but it'd be interesting to see
Ooh.
what's happening in spring, what's happening in summer about these sorts of things. I mean, we're very much of the view that it doesn't have to be at a certain time of year, it's at any time of year. But that might be a thought, mightn't it, to do a bit of a check in?
It could well be a nice touch of coachy accountability going on there.
Yeah. Well, you know,
That's what coaches do, right? Keep you accountable.
exactly, exactly. The hat's never far away, is it? Right. Let's share some of our favorite quotes before we move on to the question.
The question.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there
What
was
what was your favorite quote?
um do you know what? I actually really like the one you came up with, but I'm not going to steal your thunder on that.
Oh,
So
okay, thanks.
there was one a meaningful one that I really liked was if you asked me for my New Year resolution, it would be to find out who I am. And that was from somebody called Cyril Cusack. I like that. I mean, that can apply always. We're always a work in progress, always learning about ourselves. So I love that.
I think the one you might be referring to that I found, which I really liked because I've spoken about life chapters quite a lot before. It's this lovely quote: "New year, new chapter, new verse, or just the same old story. Ultimately, we write it. The choice is ours." And I thought Kirsty would like that one. And that's Alex Morritt. And I'd never come across this before, but I thought, wow, that's such a brilliant quote. Love it.
Yeah. Brilliant. Yeah. And a really short and pithy one from Oprah Winfrey. Cheers to a new year and another chance for us to get it right.
Like
And
it.
the only thing I would add to the end of that is in our own way.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, there's no set way for getting these things right. And we shouldn't feel extra pressure having to do things in a certain way. So on that note, shall we move on to our question?
The question, let's do it.
Let's do it. So how do you want to be feeling at the end of 2025? So
Mm.
Kirsty, tell us.
You know what? I want to be feeling proud of myself. I want to feel proud for the year I've had, and I want to feel excited about moving forward into the next year, 2026. Doesn't that sound strange? Yeah, I want to feel that I've been creative and courageous and resilient, and that I'm in a good position from which to keep moving forward. And that in terms of building my business, supporting others, and of course, working on myself.
I love that. I could just sort of say, yeah, me too.
Ditto.
That's such a cop out there, isn't it? The funny thing was, it was very difficult to think of another word for to go with I feel. Obviously, the word I wanted to also say was proud, but I think that's a really, really natural response to want to have. But I thought, well, okay, let's try and tweak that a little bit. So I said, I want to feel excited about what I have created, what
Yeah.
I've laid the foundations for, and for what is to come. But I just said, I kind of want to translate this to at any time, though, not just at a year end, a year beginning, because I think sometimes that can mean we fall into a kind of, I'll wait until this point to then make the next shift or change. Do you know what I mean? We
Yeah.
draw sort of future markers in the sand for, well, I'll start it at this point in time, because I think I'd like it to translate to a whole sort of year round type feeling. What am I creating, laying foundations for, and what am I trying to prepare myself for what's to come? So there
Yes,
we
not
go. That's
leaving it
that's
all to the last minute. That's
exactly. Yes, let's cram it all in
oh
on the
fuck it. Oh fuck,
31st.
it's December. I need to do something to make myself proud. Um,
Yeah, exactly. So we have got a couple of blogs to share, haven't we, in the show notes, where we've both spoken a bit about New Year's resolutions. So we will share those. And yeah, do let us know how you get on with that question, how you want to feel at the end of 2025. God, it's very strange to be talking about 2020. Oh my God, I can't even say it.
2020,
How many 20s are there? See, I'm not used to saying
2025.
it. I know. What mouthful that is. We need much easier years to say than
Yeah, we
2025.
need to get to the 2030s. It'd be much easier then.
Yeah. They'll be wishing a lot of time away, though, wouldn't it? Will we still be podcasting, Kirsty, in 2030?
Oh, of course we will. Of course we will. We'll have knocked Stephen Bartlett off that top spot, won't we?
Yeah, absolutely. But oh, these two still going. What are they talking about now?
We won't know what we're talking about by then.
No, we'll have no idea.
It's a bit hit and miss now.
Exactly.
And that's
It'll
what
be like,
makes it special. Mission imperfect.
exactly. It definitely makes it imperfect. Right. So I think we should probably leave it there. Wishing everybody a very happy new year, and we'll be back soon for another episode.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Mission Imperfect.
Please visit the show notes for details on how to contact us and for any resources we may have on the topic discussed.
Until next time, keep being imperfectly you. No one does it better.